going on, guys? It's your host, your boy, George Mackay, and this is not your typical episode of Straight Talk Wrestling. No, this is something completely different. This is something that I wanted to do for a while. It is the spooky season after all. It is most people's favorite month of the year if you are a horror movie fanatic like me and my guest are. So without further ado, let me welcome someone who nobody ever thought I would do a show one-on-one with, just for obvious past history. But all bullshit aside, I'd like to welcome someone who it might surprise him that I say this, someone I actually do respect a lot. He's a former wrestling manager, a writer, and a booker. He is the co-host of When Geeks Collide with the one and only Steve Brown, who I've had on the show. Go pass through the archives and check it out. It was a great conversation. He is a horror connoisseur like myself, and he's my favorite frenemy. That's right. Let me welcome to Straight Talk Wrestling for the first time, Jeff T. Smith. How are you, sir?
Thank you, George. That was very nice introduction.
Yeah, well, we'll see how the end of the show goes, because we differ very much so on these opinions.
Oh, you know what? I seem to be in the 40 of the 40-60 split, or 30-70, wherever it's at now in the internet community.
Oh, the internet community went wild for sure, much like I did years ago for the Virgins of Another Director, which we'll leave completely off the table today. But today we are here to discuss our favorite franchise, or at least my favorite franchise, one of your favorite franchises. You have quite a bit. One of them is Scream, and that's an unfortunate circumstance that you'll have to live with for the rest of your life. But we'll get past that again.
It does not get to the level of this one, though. Don't worry. No, that's Scream's here. Life is Halloween, so don't worry. There's a huge difference, a mountain.
Absolutely.
Mountain of difference.
Absolutely. So like Jeff said, the movie we're going to discuss today is the new version, or the new final chapter in this trilogy of the Halloween franchise. It's Halloween the End, or Halloween Ends, or whatever you want to fucking call it. That's what it is. So you and I both got to see it on opening weekend. I saw it on the Friday. Did you see it on Friday as well, or did you wait Saturday or Sunday?
I saw it Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon.
All right, so you literally saw it every possible opportunity you could on opening weekend. So you gave Halloween what, like $100 of your hard-earned money?
Oh, I wanted to contribute to that 42 million domestic. Well, I guess we're part of the international, so 60 million global opening box office. Yeah.
And you know what? Despite the faults of the critics, and despite the Rotten Tomatoes score and all that kind of stuff, the fact is that this trilogy for me brought a breath of fresh air back to a franchise that I thought had been stagnant for a very long time. I'm a big fan of the original movies. Obviously 1 and 2 are staples for me in my Halloween watch-a-thon, if you will, my spooky month scaries, if you will. But 3, obviously a different aspect, Season of the Witch. It was a different telling of Halloween. Still fits within the universe, but not within the storyline of the meat and potatoes.
Do you like Season of the Witch?
I find Season of the Witch different, and not in a bad way. It's just a different story. So I think it confuses people when it's called Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, but has nothing remotely whatsoever to do with Michael Myers. And a lot of people are like, is this part of the universe? Isn't it? It is. It is part of the universe. It was in the umbrella of the universe. It's one I do enjoy, but not one that I'll rush to put into my DVD player. I do own it. And yes, I still own a DVD player. I know you do as well. But a lot of people like us, we're a dinosaur in the age of streaming and everything. You know what I mean?
I like my Halloween VHS. So I'll put in VHS of Halloween 3. And I'm a big time Halloween 3. Give me Halloween 3 any day of the week, equal to some of my top favorites of the Michael Myers saga.
Okay.
I am big time Halloween 3. And the way I look at it for Season of the Witch is I just call it like the Halloween 3, referring to the 3 masks. So that's how I like to believe it.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. So let's talk shop for a second here on Halloween. What is the thing that made you fall in love with this movie from early on? Like, what's the thing that gravitated you towards Michael Myers, to Halloween, to the whole storyline?
It's pretty much like, it kind of runs in my blood, because when my mom and dad got married in 1978, their first movie was Halloween. My mom's a big time horror fan, has been her whole life. So once I was like 6 years old, I remember probably the first time that VHS from Media Home Video Releasing was on there at our house, and I was instantly terrified from the music, the pumpkin. I was seriously scared shitless. I mean, it got me, and I'd be traumatized for years. Those next couple of years, Michael Myers would always scare me. We'd go into Jumbo Video, that horror section with the castle. That whole horror movie thing would scare me, but we had that top row of VHS that was kind of up here to all my videos down here. And that drawer had Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, 4, and 5 had come out by that time.
Right.
So just kind of raised with that. And then it wasn't until, and I'd watch it every year. And then one time with my grandparents, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going to watch Halloween. It's like around 93. When the Nightmare board game and stuff came in, like I even though I still got scared, I'd always loved getting scared. So here we go, Halloween season. Let's put in 2, and I like 2. 2 is actually my favorite. Mm-hmm. And then I watched 3, and it threw me off, and I was like, okay. And then I put on 4 and 5, and I was wrecked. I mean, that scared me because also I had a crush on Danielle Harris. I was like the same age, so I'm looking at Jamie Lloyd, someone my age now, not just Laurie age, a teenager, getting attacked by this crazy Michael Myers who terrified me. So once I got into the horror more around 12, 13, then I really started to just dive into it. I'm like, okay, rather than be scared, that's why the Laurie character and Jamie Lee Curtis resonates so much with me growing up, and why she is so important to me as an actress and the Laurie character. It's because you'd always feel safe if Laurie was there, even if Halloween 2, like in my head. And then you'd watch her in other movies. It's like, oh, that's Jamie Lee Curtis. If she should go against Michael, she'd go against anybody, like in my kid head, right? And then Halloween H2O, or at that time when I first read about it, Halloween 7, the revenge, I think, of Laurie Strode. And that was huge for me. I'm like, she's coming back. And then that was my first theatrical Halloween. And that was it. It was all in from there, and everything I could. All the VHS from Anchor Bay, the collector editions were coming out with the documentaries. So really just diving in and expanding my knowledge. Really sought after the old Fangoria magazines, especially the Halloween issues from the 80s, just to really, really pick up and evolve myself more into the actors, the cast, the crew, the writers, just really, envelop the franchise. Was that too long of an answer?
No, it was a perfect answer. It was a perfect answer because we're talking about something that we passionately care about, and I understand all of that. I was probably,
and I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate now, thanks to conventions, which I was not really familiar with up till 2007, that I thankfully met many of these actors that I never in a million years, as that terrified kid, watching Halloween 2 and seeing Nurse Karen. And I know we all liked Nurse Karen. Oh, I'm with Pamela Susan Shoop, and we're talking, and then she wants to see my mom and talk to my mom, and this is Pamela Susan Shoop. And then the ultimate Jamie Lee Curtis, which was once in a lifetime, and I'll never forget that.
Absolutely. Laurie Strode is the horror queen. Jamie Lee Curtis is the horror queen. No matter what she does, usually resonates very, very well with fans. But let's talk about the whole Halloween, I guess you'd say, umbrella, pyramid, whatever you want to call it, before we dive into our reviews of this new one, which has very much been debated over the last almost week now as we're recording this, of the release. Tomorrow will be the official 1 week that this movie's been out, and the internet's been going ablaze. But let's talk about the storyline that a lot of people don't understand. So you got Halloween 1, you got Halloween 2, then we have Season of the Witch, which again, or as you call it, Halloween 3, or the 3 Halloween. How did you put it again?
Yeah, the Halloween 3.
The Halloween
3. Yeah.
The Halloween 3, which tapers off completely from Michael Myers. Michael Myers has nothing to do with that movie at all. And then we go into 4 and 5. Now, 4 and 5 to me are some of my personal favorites because I did love the aspect of them breaking the culture shock of Michael Myers, because Michael Myers never attacked kids. Even in the first movie, it shows how he bypassed children. We see him with Danny. When he bumps into Danny, whatever, Danny just looks at him and just runs away all scared. We see that he never really pushes the envelope with children, but he does very much go after adults or anyone related to his family in any inkling. So this being a child related to his family, as him being well, kind of her uncle, actually is
Yeah,
her uncle.
yeah.
There was a different aspect to it for me that intrigued me so much. And then of course, you know, you get 6, and then you get H2O, and then you get Resurrection. There's so much meat and potatoes in the storyline. But what was your thought process on, let's go 4, 5, and 6, dealing with, you know, the aspect of him going after a child, then in 5, her kind of unraveling and becoming him in an essence by what happens at the end of that movie. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but just standing there at the end with the knife and everything. And at 6, we see her as a teenager again giving birth, but then there's this whole satanic cult vibe to it. Let's, if we just unpack 4, 5, and 6, what was your thought process on that story arc and how it was told?
Okay, so what's been dubbed the Thorn trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
the Thorn Curse. Yeah, 4. I mean, I love Halloween 6. I do, especially the producer's cut. I found that it had the closest vibe to the 78 original as far as the exterior shots of, even though it wasn't the same Myers house, just the streets, the everything. And of course, I mean, that movie was put together by writer Daniel Ferens, who had an encyclopedia to Mustafa Cad of the series. So they wanted to kind of hone in on the 78 vibe. But for 4, I do like that it established very quickly but easily, okay, Laurie died and Jamie's with the foster parents and sister. And then now we're going to be introduced to this new. So Rachel, I mean, is one of the fan favorites of the entire series. I think it's a great character. Ellie Cornell did a wonderful job. She had vulnerability. And I think they used that as an anchor to offset Jamie, because obviously there's a lot of material to pack in, but Danielle was doing that at 8 years old, shooting this. And I mean, she was remarkable. So a lot of heavy material. The Loomis was brought back. And the way that story developed, that you never quite knew, even in 4, again, because of Michael Pataki's doctor character, Dr. Hoffman, is how much involved was he or interested he in Michael's evil ways, and did he really want Michael out? I think he did, the way he watched that ambulance go. So that's how I always perceived it. The rooftop chase has to be one of the best sequences in the entire franchise.
I would agree.
I love the rooftop chase. And that, of course, has the shock ending with Jamie turning on her stepmother. I'm just going to spoil. If you're listening to this, I hope people would know the friggin' series. And a lot of debate is that 5 didn't pick that up, and I think that's a lot to do with the Office, you know, as the writing. Would I have liked to see Jamie go full evil? It would have expanded, but I think by that time there was so much competition with the icons. I mean, you have to keep Michael there, which they could have. But I didn't want to see Jamie go bad, because I like Jamie, you know. By the time I watched it in 1993, I didn't want to see Jamie, or 94, I didn't want to see Jamie go bad. So I was mad by 5. I mean, when Rachel gets killed that early, that's devastating.
Very devastating.
I'm also hot take, I can defend Tina, who's probably the most loathed character next to Freddy of Halloween Resurrection. And I can justify Tina as a character, as the performance, and that character existing, which that's a whole, I could go on 10 minutes of this breakdown of her role and what she represented. But she was no Rachel. And then what? You love it. I'm sorry.
I love it. I could go on 10 minutes of justifying this character, but at the end of the day, she's no Rachel. So why bother justifying it then? She's not Rachel. Just move on, Jeff. There's no need to justify. Rachel.
All right. I think by that time, do you really want to know my whole breakdown on Tina? Well, very quick.
You've kind of built it up now to the point where I am intrigued. I mean, I loathe Tina to no avail. Okay. To know. So maybe you can make me a Tina believer. Sell me. Go ahead. Sell me.
Okay. All right. So Tina, Rachel is dead. She does not know Rachel is dead, her best friend. She is a party goer. She's an extrovert to the highest degree. I think at that time, remember, this was late 80s. There was a lot of stuff happening culturally If you think about like TV shows, a lot of like abortion talk and all that in the shows. So I think in a roundabout way, Tina represented youth, a young girl who reflected a girl that was so caught up in her own development, she was not ready to take on a responsibility of a child or a charge. And so by Rachel Dine, she's having this almost forced on her, much like an analogy for a unwanted pregnancy. She's having this motherhood forced on her, and she just wants to be a girl in high school with no responsibilities. At the same time, she knows deep down, she's got a sense that she has to protect this girl because she loves this girl. And she just is wrestling constantly with being a outgoing party-loving teenager or an adult woman that she's not yet ready to be. And by the time she understands that she has to step up and take responsibility for this little girl, it's too little too late. And in turn, she sacrifices herself for that. That's a very quick Coles Notes version.
You know what? You've changed my perception to the point where after we're done this, I'm gonna have to go revisit it with those eyes. So I'll give credit where credit's due.
Okay.
You have changed my opinion to the point, because you're right. You have to put yourself in the cultural position of when the film was released. You can't just watch it all in one sitting and be like, I hate this fucking bitch. But when I was younger, I could sit there and be like, I could skip all the movies. I watched them so many times, put that one in because that was one of my favorite ones. Oh, I forgot about fucking Tina. Fucking Tina. But you've changed my opinion. So kudos on you for that. All right.
Okay.
All right.
That was decent. We're already off to a great start here.
We are. We're vibing to a great start. So let's talk.
Oh, you asked me about Halloween 6. Really?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. It's Halloween 6.
So,
yes.
So of course we're 6 years later. Now I'm getting older. I remember that video. Rented the VHS. So obviously my mom rented it and I wanted to watch it because I couldn't help myself. It was that guilty. I am so terrified I have to watch it. Even though this video cannot be in my room. I lost sleep the night before because obviously we rented it for 2 nights. And I watched it and I liked it. That dad, Bradford English, he cracks me. He gets under my skin, but he's a great character.
Oh, great character.
Love
Absolutely great character.
John Strode. Bradford English, it must be the boogeyman. Here I come, boogeyman. Like, just so ridiculous, but it's still grounded. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the cops in Halloween 5 with the clown music. That was just too much.
Yeah.
That character felt it. He's an alcoholic father. And then especially when he gets real for a moment, it's like, she really left me, talking about Deborah. He doesn't know she's dead. It's just, it really grounded. The character seemed grounded, even Cara Strode. And I really liked 6. I did, even though it got wonky. And I was not a huge fan of Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle. I really liked Loomis and the other characters.
Now, see, that's where I think we would differ again, but I might be able to sell you. Paul Rudd at that time was relatively, flat-footed. What had he done at that point? Clueless. Not anything to be excited about.
Yeah, I think Clueless had come out after he had shot, because it was shot in 94 originally, except for the reshoots.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So he was relatively unknown at that point. Like, unless you knew Clueless, you didn't really know Paul Rudd. So for me, it was okay, cool. Like, let me vibe with this guy and see where he's at. I thought he added a little layers and dexterity to Tommy Doyle. That's how I could picture Tommy Doyle. He almost played the character of an insomniac who had never really overcome all the childhood trauma that he had suffered, but yet working towards getting his fear. And he wasn't like, a jacked up guy, or he wasn't like a guy that had worked out to try to, take Michael down in a fight. He had been watching from a distance, trying to protect those that he could, whereas getting involved as much as he could until he kind of puts himself at the end of the whole situation. I actually liked the way Paul Rudd played Tommy Doyle to the point where I felt it added layers. And that was one of the saving graces for me in 6. Paul Rudd's performance, I feel, was underrated. And I feel people should go back and actually revisit that one. Because I think if you watch it, I would recommend this, Jeff. Watch 1, Tommy Doyle Young.
Yeah.
And then go back right after and just put 6 on. Right after, go 1-6.
It's pretty, yeah. I don't despise it. I'm not shitting on it. It's just not like the character itself. I'm like, oh, this is Tommy, but I didn't much care for the character anyway. You know what I mean?
Really invested in Tommy Doyle is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. he was, yeah. I mean, it was just Tommy. I liked. Okay, we're gonna say it. I like Tommy from Rob Zombie's Halloween. I thought he was a little bit more of a spunkier kid. Skylar Gazondo just was in that video game, The Quarry, which I bought and haven't played yet. But anyway, side note.
Yeah, that's off topic completely.
But I do not hate Paul Rudd. No, I got it exactly. And there's some extra stuff too in the producer's cut of him as well. And anything with Mrs. Blankenship, amazing.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
That monologue, Connell Cochran's monologue in Halloween 3, Mrs. Blankenship's monologue in Halloween 6 are two of the greatest moments. And I would say Anthony Michael Hall's in Halloween Kills in the bar. Those are three great monologues of the series that you could take to any audition and try to knock it out of the park, if it's even possible.
So let's talk about Anthony Michael Hall since we're on this Tommy Doyle train. If you were to look at Tommy Doyle in the new trilogy, what would you consider to be the better performance of Tommy Doyle? Anthony Michael Hall, the Rob Zombie films that you mentioned, fine, we'll loop that one in too. And as well, what about Paul Rudd's performance as an, let's actually forget the kid performances. Let's go adult Tommy Doyle. Yeah. Which one could you see being more connected to the original than the other?
As I said, I really like Anthony Michael Hall's because he's playing the trauma level, which is almost the word getting overused now with the trilogy, but he's playing it where he's tough, but there's still a level of insecurity where he's as much convincing himself that he can stand up to the boogeyman as he's trying to convince others. I think you see that when he recruits people, he gets into the car and then he's talking to himself, saying eyes open, like keep yourself together. But he's really unraveling inside. And I think there's a dual layer performance in what he's bringing to the film, which is why I like it. So also this is a 40-year time span versus a 20-year time span, or almost 20 years for Paul Rudd. I think where those films are set timeline-wise, they are almost equal, but I like the Anthony Michael Hall performance better.
Okay, I would agree with you on that. But I still think Paul Rudd's performance had something special in it. It's just I felt it to be a little bit overshadowed. It also was overshadowed too because fucking like Loomis was still there. Loomis, put Loomis in a film, Loomis is going to overshadow everybody. Like my favorite Loomis line of all time: I spent 7 years trying to reach him, 8 years trying to keep him locked up. It's so simple. Simple that it's almost Oscar worthy, for fuck's sakes, in my opinion. How Dr. Loomis is never
another monologue. There's a monologue right there. That's a monologue.
That's one of my favorite. That's in my opinion, that's the monologue you take to an audition and you try to knock out of the park, but you can't fucking do it because nobody can be Loomis. And I think that's what. So now let's go into the Rob Zombie films, because if anybody doesn't know our history, you and I developed this frenemy situation over the basis of how bad I felt the Rob Zombie films were. I thought at the end of the day, whenever you're trying to remake or redo the original, you want to make it your own. And I get that. But I felt that Rob Zombie went too far into the origin of Michael Myers. I like the way Carpenter did it. It was short, sweet, simple. Sister has sex. Sister's the guy, obviously, and I feel bad for her too, because the last moment in life she had, he was like 33 seconds. Like he went upstairs, he came right back down. Like if that's the last thing you're gonna do before you die, I feel so bad for her. It's not even funny. Like he literally goes upstairs and then he comes right back down, and it's like he already had a shirt half. He only took a shirt half off. Like you didn't even take your full shirt off, bro.
George, have you ever watched the Halloween 78 with the first? I think it's the first commentary with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes, I
think she's done too. And she's like, "What a pig! Absolute pig!" Like she's coming.
But she's not wrong. So he leaves, right? Michael goes upstairs. She's brushing her hair, boobs out, everything like that. He stabs her. Then we go outside. The parents are there. He rips off the mask, and we just see the lost darkness in Michael Myers' eyes. I didn't need to know what happened from there to in the asylum to breaking out of the asylum. John Carpenter did the story in such a way where I didn't care about the 15 years or whatever it was inside the insane asylum. I didn't need that. And I felt Rob Zombie overtold that because that's something that the fan in him wanted to see. And I get that 100%. Now. I get that.
What it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. It makes logical sense to the fan in him. But then again, to remake the original and add this whole extra 45 minutes roughly, then we get into the meat and potatoes of the original. And don't get me wrong, I didn't hate the first Halloween. I just didn't like the origin of Michael Myers. I didn't need to know how he became a sadistic fuck. He was.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
I didn't need to see how he became it. He just was. And then the part of still his mom trying to go visit him and stuff like that, trying to reach him, and then you slowly see him just keep fading away. It's something that Loomis's monologue in the original set up so perfectly that I didn't need to see all that. And then we get into Halloween 2, which Halloween 2 is arguably my favorite one in the franchise. And then he destroys it for me. He destroys it for me to the point where I will admit this right now. This is breaking news. I never watched the last 30 minutes of Halloween 2 because I was so infuriated I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. In Rob Zombie's version, I have shut it off. I have never watched that because that last half an hour in the original Halloween 2 was so breathtakingly terrifying. Like I could still watch that hospital chase scene and I fucking live for that. I live for that. Then he gets shot in the eyes. Then they blow up the whole thing. I live for it all. Michael, like I live for it all.
Yeah.
And then I didn't want Rob Zombie to ruin that for me. So I have never watched the last half an hour of Rob Zombie's version of Halloween 2. I don't know if I ever can. You talk about staying up at night because the original movies terrified you. I stayed up at night out of horrendous anger for what he did to the character that I hold dear to my heart. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, Rob Zombie's H2, only that first hospital moment, which was a /memory/dream, is in the hospital. The whole thing is and it's almost entirely fresh story take. So that's what I didn't mind about it, and it felt gritty, rough. I always try. H2 I like more than H1 for Rob Zombies. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It's a real deep psychological journey into descent and madness. Is it shared? A lot of parallels to what we're going to talk about with Halloween Ends, but I've seen people talk about not since H2 has there been so much diversity, and Kill's got a lot of diversity between fans, but this is up there with H2. And but I just dive into that. It's not pleasant, and I mean that of we throw on any of the originals, we're having a good time now. We're enjoying the experience. But those movies, they are much more harsh. They're rougher, and I think they take just as much of a toll on you watching it if you're investing yourself in it as it's trying to take a toll on the characters. Am I having a soft spot because Danielle Harris is back in it? Yes, I am. 100%.
I just wanted to make sure that was clarified. Yeah. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, that's a bias. But that death scene, I mean, in H2, the performance, I once talked to Brad Dourif about this, saying that his performance is heart-wrenching when he learns that Annie's dead in H2. It's so impactful. And in the director's cut, they actually show like grainy VHS footage of Danielle as a kid. It was actually from, I think, the set of Halloween 4. But, and they show that just to further just hammer you right in the face, in the heart, saying this character of on a grander scale, this franchise has been brutally murdered. And Brad Dourif selling that anguish constantly. I think it's a great performance. I do prefer the theatrical cut. Actually, the theatrical cuts of both Rob Zombie Halloweens I prefer. Even though the director's cuts give me some additional Danielle Harris stuff, and even there are extra scenes with Margot Kidder in H2, which help explain the Laurie Strode psychological aspect a little bit more. But I mean, they're just so grueling. I'm not going out of my way to watch them as I will H2O or anything like that. So I'm not a kill or be killed fan to that level, but I do like them. And especially at a time in those mid 2000s, which we had Saws, we had Cabin Fevers, we had Hostels. So they had to, they were going to feel different no matter what, I think.
No, you're right. You're right. The exhaustion on my face is because I knew this moment was going to come where I was going to have to admit that you're right. So I will right now pledge to you and everyone that's watching this episode. Just give me a minute, Jeff. Just give me a minute. I will rewatch them through and through with open eyes. But Jeff, don't be surprised if after sitting through both movies, I send you a message that says they still suck. Understand that I can't appreciate Rob Zombie's storytelling. I can when he designs his own characters, like House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, 3 from Hell. That to me is some of Rob Zombie's best work. And actually, The Devil's Rejects to me is the best film out of all 3. And that's
I love House of a Thousand. House of a Thousand's iconic. It's the first I saw it in theaters. To me, that's it. That was the bar. Even though he hates them, he really
he says he's said numerous times that if he could do it over again, he would in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, he would. Yeah. But I really did enjoy those. Rob Zombie's got a different way of scaring, and he scares very much like you said, very methodical and very much making you feel what the character feels, which is a talent to do. But the thing that made those movies so refreshing is he made you feel for the killers, not the victims. In those movies, I felt that you almost wanted the victims to die just so that,
there's a lot of that. Yeah. I think that's what was special. And still trying to keep that Michael innocence, like, especially in H2. And I've talked to Chase Vanek, who played young Michael in H2, and he's my favorite young Michael portrayal between the two. Even though he doesn't do as much, he brings this angelic innocence, but with a sinister undertone that reminds you that Michael was once this person, but there's just this line of sinister intent beneath the face, beneath the tone. And again, that's all in H2. You can see it. I would say almost try to watch the theatrical versions of both of those films.
Okay, well, I did see the first one in theaters. The second one I watched when it was on Netflix, I believe, or one of the streaming sites. Like I said, I got about an hour into it. I was like, no, I can't do it. I ended up shutting it off and putting on H2, sitting the original H2, sitting down on my couch and being like, now I'm okay. Everything's okay now. The world is all right now. So
I told you, Halloween 2 is the ultimate for me. And again, another one where John Carpenter and them, they don't look highly on H2, yet it's adored by fans, Halloween 2. And
which I don't understand. I you know what? But again, we don't see it from their perspective. I guess they wanted the characters to go in different directions, and it ultimately wasn't their full vision.
Exactly. And John Carpenter said he was struggling with that story to get a twist, a hook, and he had his 6-pack of beer and he made them brother and sister, which was never the intent in his mind. So that's why he wanted, they decided to do away with it for the new trilogy.
Right. Which is in my opinion, the new trilogy breathed life into this franchise, because in my honest opinion, after H2O, I felt Resurrection was just, there's just something about Resurrection that I feel disappointed. I own it, I do, but I feel disappointed for the simple fact that, and I own it on VHS and I own it on DVD, and I own it on all available platforms. I think I even have a Laserdisc somewhere too, which is hilarious because Laserdisc players aren't even a thing. But
Yeah, a
I
Resurrection. I Laserdisc of H2O. I think they stopped Laserdisc by Resurrection.
sorry, there you go. Fair enough. So yeah, I may have a laser disc of H2O, but regardless, I have Resurrection on every available platform that I could have had it on.
Okay.
And I just look at the death of Laurie Strode in that as just such a macabre slap in the face to this character that has gone toe to toe with him so many times, and then that's how he gets her. That's how he gets her.
Yeah, and there was a deleted line that would have been better, and it just involved a bit more of Josh Hartnett, and like I think there's where the knife goes through her before she kisses him goodbye. Like she outright tells him, "You will never find John." Like she's made sure of it, so it's the end of the road for him and his family, no matter if she dies or not. And then she pulls the knife out of her back, which she does anyway. So there's that bit of empowerment when you watch it. She's letting herself go. And that was also Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, I have to realize that was her creative decision if she was contractually obliged to come back because of the H2O clause, which she knew about going in. There was a whole agreement around that she almost quit the movie when they said Michael can't die. And then they agree with Kevin Williamson and the writers. It's like, if Laurie believes she's beheaded Michael and the audience believes it, then Jamie Lee will stick with it, providing she ends it, she gets killed off for 5-10 minutes in the next one if they're doing it. But people have to believe Michael's dead at the end of H2O.
Right.
So that's how that came about. I think it was a great movie if it just had it slightly before H2O. Like again, the reality concept. If H2O was a 2002 movie, but then you couldn't do 20 years, you could maybe do 25 years. And Resurrection was like 2001 when Survivor was big and stuff like that. So that might have worked, and then have H2O. Just swap them around.
You know what?
That might have been okay.
That's not a bad idea. That's not.
Yeah.
You know what, Jeff? You're not just a friend of me. You've got some smarts in you, bud. You got some smarts in you. You do. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to this franchise, yeah, I really have to piece things together, right?
Absolutely.
A deep dive.
Absolutely. So now we are in the meat and potatoes of the new trilogy. Halloween was fantastic. I thought it paid homage to the original in so many ways, but the 40-year timeline I loved bringing kind of the H2O aspect of getting Laurie and Michael into that fight in the house and then burning the house down. Yeah. But as we know, Michael can't die. So Halloween Kills was inevitable. Now, Halloween Kills is a lot of people are much on the fence about. Like you said, Halloween Kills is one of those things that the internet either loves or hates. For me personally, Halloween Kills, the fact that it picked up literally moments after Halloween ended, I thought was brilliant. It was almost like
much like our beloved Halloween 2.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, yes, they're paying homage to the original Halloween 1 and 2, just like they should. And I loved it. And going out and killing the whole fire department. Oh, fucking yeah. Why can't this man who never dies destroy 20 firefighters in the blink of an eye? It's not impossible. He can't fucking die. No matter what you do, he's literally the engine that never could. He's just going to keep going. He's the Energizer Bunny. You can't take the battery out. Fucker's going to keep going. And then at the end, when he kills off Laurie's daughter, I'm like, okay, I wonder what's going to happen now.
One of them had to go, and it couldn't be Laurie, because that's just real. If they're out there fighting, they're not all going to make it, right?
No, absolutely.
They're not.
Absolutely.
And I like Kills. Look, I just got my Halloween Kills shirt here.
Beautiful shirt, by the way. Beautiful shirt. It would look better on me, but it's still a beautiful shirt. But
I think Halloween Kills was the movie. It was the sequel and the movie that we never ever thought we'd actually get, because it is so intense. It's nonstop. People complain about lack of character development, lack of story development. It's all in one night, and it's got to go, go, go. They're literally doing something that you never thought possible, because it's a middle chapter. They knew that, and they had to throw it all in there and just go, let's do it. Critics be damned. Some fans be damned. We got to show this continued night of carnage, and everyone's just got to roll with it. And especially the legacy characters. I like that aspect. I wish we got more of them, but there's only so much time. They killed one of my personal favorites. Again, Marion. I'm a big time Marion fan. I love Nancy Stevens. That one hurt to see her get killed. But it was going to happen. You finally got Lindsay Wallace back for the first time in 40 years. And she even slugs Michael with a bag of bricks and almost gets killed in the process. I mean, it was pretty fucking awesome, if you ask me. There's a lot to like about Kills.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
Absolutely.
you know, I like it. I'm still struggling on how to place these three films because there's a lot of kills. The only thing is maybe Tivoli, which I mean is a big thing about Tivoli getting misunderstood as Michael by the general crowd, and then, you know, gets killed. And that segment kind of is just this. It had to happen in there because that's the story they're telling about the mob, but it does take you out a little bit before we get back to the Myers house. But I mean, it happens. And I think another thing people don't like about it is it really does show people are that when you are that irate and on a tirade and one person saying this and this person saying that, and you're just joining and this bandwagon that's all that snowball, you know, down the hill is rolling. I think some people don't like seeing that. And this film is taking it in your face. It's like, hey, people, this is how you are. And you don't even want to recognize how you are in these scenarios. But we see it on the internet. We see it on Facebook all the time. Everybody jumps on, you know, to something that's hot, even if they have no fucking business being involved with it. They're just going to get involved with it, right? They become passionate about it. And try telling them that. And that's what Halloween Kills does. It exemplifies that. In my opinion.
To the core. I agree with you on so many of the things you said. Like I said, this conversation was one that a lot of people never thought would happen, but I knew it would be as exciting as it has been. And it's been very entertaining. Thank God I'm here to keep it afloat, though. Because if it was just you, Jeff, it would be just one tangent where I don't think you breathed. I think you would just keep going till you passed out. And you have to take breaths in between, Jeff. You have to. You've got to breathe. You do. All right. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of why we're here. It's only 45 minutes later, but okay. It doesn't matter. So Halloween ends. It's it. It's over. It's finished. It's done. This movie.
I'm ready. I was ready for the finale.
As was I. Based off the timeline that they followed, we get one, then it's 40 years later. We get technically 2, 3, and now 4. That's the way I look at these movies together. That's the way I piece them together in my own head. I knew that one of them was going to die. It's either going to be Laurie or Michael, because that's the only way it ends. It has to end that way. Or both. Yeah, or both. It was going to be the undoing of both. And for a while there, especially in the last couple of minutes, it was really touch and go. I thought they were both going to go together. And then
I was my hands were clenched. I mean, you know me, I've already said emotionally invested with Laurie Jamie Lee. I was in 2018 during that fight, and this one even more. I went in knowing and accepting that once again I could lose this character, but if I was, it was going to be heroically. And those moments, holy shit, it ends. I was right, and I was really convinced the only way for him to die is if she dies too, and she was going with him for that scene. You know what I mean? No, we'll talk about.
Absolutely. And spoilers ahead if you haven't watched it. If you haven't watched it, you shouldn't be watching this until after you've watched it, then come back and watch this.
Exactly.
But we get into the meat and potatoes of the whole thing, everything we've been wanting as fans of this franchise. And I loved it. I personally love this one from beginning to end. Is it the best one in the trilogy? No, it isn't. It isn't at all. But my opinion, the first one is the strongest one in the franchise.
I wasn't applying the best. I was applying that you actually like this, that you're on board with the
I'm gonna explain why. And I know it's gonna be hard for you to interrupt. So try to bite your tongue till give me 5 minutes, okay? Give me 5 minutes. So I liked it for so many levels. One, I loved how they tried to showcase passing on the legacy to the new Michael. I love that aspect of him choking him, looking into the eyes of Michael, getting all the memories, almost like power is being transferred. And then I loved how he thought he was better than Michael when he became the student, became the master, and he goes back into the sewer and he steals the mask. They have that fight, and you think, really? Michael let him take it off that easy? But then Michael gets back up, and you're like, oh, unfinished business. Then he actually is stupid enough to think that Laurie Strode is going to kill herself via suicide. And he goes in the house. They have a shitty ass fight, but then he fucks her over because he actually has her granddaughter convinced that she ruined the love of his life. Now, here's the interesting fact that a lot of people might not see. At its core, Halloween Ends is a love story.
Yeah.
A lot of people might not see that. A love story in a horror movie? What are you talking about? And that's why a lot of people fucking have been obliterating it on the internet because they don't get it. The fact is that the reason why this kid failed as being the legacy of Michael is because he had the one thing Michael never did: love.
Yeah.
And the fact that he still was holding on to this girl that they had connected through trauma, when he slices himself, as if I can never have her, no one can. He slices his own fucking throat and he passes out in front of Lori, and she's like, "No, you stupid bastard, you stupid son of a bitch."
Yeah.
He pulls out the knife and out walks the granddaughter. It's like, what the fuck did you do? That's when we knew it was going to end, because Michael knew his legacy, his student that he was mentoring, was a fucking failure, because Michael is a killing machine. He has no remorse. He has no feelings. He doesn't know how to love. He knows how to love killing, but he doesn't know how to love. So once we saw Michael's hand pick up the mask, we knew that the legacy was dead. They were telling the story of, oh, look, there may be another one after this. Ha ha, fucking screwed you. No, there isn't going to be another one. This is the end. Then we get that epic battle. Sure. Is it short, sweet, and simple to the point? Yes. Does Lori fuck him up? Hell yeah. Rightfully so. And at the end, my favorite part of that whole sequence is when she nails the second knife into his hand, then takes the fucking skillet and hammers the fucking thing down.
Oh, so good.
And
yeah. It's like, no, you don't, you fuck. Boom. Right down.
Yes. And then fucking takes the fridge, pins his legs, and then she's just fucking going to town. Then she pulls off the mask, slices his throat, but as she does, the fucker rips his own hand from a butcher's knife. He cuts literally down the seam of his fucking palm, grabs her throat, and you think, holy shit, it's over.
Crush her throat, and she's shutting her eyes. She's saying, do it.
She's gasping for air. You think, holy fuck, they're going to go together. They're going to go together.
Yeah.
Then out of nowhere, granddaughter comes in, breaks his fucking arm like it's nothing. And then it's literally over. Michael just bleeds out. And then what happens? Exactly what you expect to happen. A town that had been tortured by the boogeyman for 40 plus years picks this fucking dude up, straps him to a car, not puts him in a coffin, walks him to a junkyard. No, they strap him to the car like a mattress you just bought from fucking Sleep Country, Canada. They roll him to a junkyard and they roll him into a chopper, and all you hear is Lori's fucking monotoned fucking monologue, very, eerie almost, in the dead of night, a town united to bury the boogeyman. Blah, 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 blah. No funeral, no nothing, just destroyed. And then you see Michael's body just fold up and fucking obliterate into that machine.
Brain crushes out, pops out, crushes right back down the grinds. I mean, that's it.
That's it. So amazing. And then what happens? Everyone gets on with their life. The granddaughter finally leaves Haddonfield, and Lori's left there with, I guess, the love interest being the cop, and they're planning on going to Japan. They're planning on doing it. And at the essence, the core of this film was a love story. I sat back and reflected the next night, and I had people messaging me on Facebook, a couple other fellow podcasters that I love. What did you think of it? Dude, I said, for what it was, I liked it. I really did, because at the time I hadn't fully processed my opinion. And then I got, oh, it's fucking trash. It was shit. It wasn't what I expected. Well, if it wasn't what you were expected, I don't know what you've been watching for the first two films, because it was leading up to all of this. It may have not been the way you wanted to see it end, but we knew it was going to end. It was either going to be one or the other or both. Either way, there's no more Lori and Michael. There's no more story to tell. But at its essence, at its core, David Gordon Green found a way to turn the most iconic horror franchise in its last installment, or what we would hope to be its last installment, into a love story. At its core, this is a story about two souls that were doomed from the start finding love. Is it very weird how quickly they fell into this raw animal magnetism? I thought for sure the way they were going to do it was Lori's granddaughter was going to snap and they were going to go on this killing spree together. They almost set it up that way, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And if you think about it, everyone that he killed, in essence, he killed for the granddaughter. He killed for his love. The doctor that fucked her over, the nurse that stole her promotion. Everyone he killed, the legacy killer killed, he killed for her. So when that happens, you fail as being the next Michael Myers because you're killing for someone else. You're not killing for yourself. That's what Michael does. Michael kills for himself. He doesn't kill for anybody else.
Now, Corey killed those high school marching band punks too, which was great. Great death with the fire.
All of them were fine. But yeah, but they tortured the fucking guy. So he got a little bit on his own. He got a little bit for his own. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite kill in that whole sequence was when the fucking father steps in front of him. He gets shot between the fucking eyes and he just drops and you just see the dude have the mask. I fucking loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh my God. We are in tune on this one. We are in sync, George. Absolutely. Everything you just said and more, it is a love story. And going back to this, you're talking about the connection of Laurie and Michael and how is there a connection? There's also a love-hate there.
Oh,
they even joke about it. Nurse Deb says in the movie, can you imagine if your grandmother fell in love with Michael Myers? And they always said, even going back to the original novelization, is that Michael saw Laurie. If they weren't brother and sister, how did he like her? Well, she came to his house. He saw her first. And I think they also hinted this, that it's the girl you can't have. Oscar says it when he confuses Michael for Mr. Elrod in the 2018. He says, have you ever just seen a girl that you can't have? I think that kind of summed it up right there. It's like, we know the girl he can't have. It's Laurie, and that they're destined to this, for almost forever. The Corey character, I really connected with that. I thought that was great. As somebody who has been misconstrued by reputation and bullshit, even in their school years, I could understand how that not to a level of a kid being killed, but similar themes of misunderstanding and misrepresentation harming you and doing damage, and how that could affect if you didn't have the right support group. And I really got behind that character. You can see how he could evolve into that, and a love of this power, again, more love, the love of letting this darkness come in if he feels he's doing it for a greater love, which in this case, Allison, his one saving grace for the matter. Mm-hmm. And the whole time, Laurie's realizing this, and I love that even though she's had her therapy and she's moving on, she still knows evil and she knows the danger signs, and she's right there on top of it. The scene in the house that morning where he wakes up on the blood stain and she's on that chair rocking, possibly one of my top 5 favorite scenes in the whole series. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great, and there seems to be more of that, more dialogue. If you watch the trailers, there's got to be an extended edition like there was Killed.
Oh, for
because
sure.
There's the line where it says, it's in one of the trailers or TV spots, and she's like, this ends tonight. It's setting up, and maybe would clarify for people who's like, well, how did she know about the suicide and Corey coming? She knew because this is set up. You can get that if you know Laurie, if you know the character like we do. You didn't need to be told that. She knows he's coming for her that night. But this kind of is a agreement between them of this is going down, and we're doing this. So yeah. But there's so much there, and that procession scene was perfect for me. They got Sandra, who I was surprised survived with the fluorescent light tube scars, the graveyard keeper. Julian, now a teenager, we saw him walking. It's got these survivors of the town there, and the thing that got me really emotional and honoring this character is that they've been against her so much that she's now brought a defeated Michael to them to put peace, that they understand what she's done. And when they part ways after carrying Michael up to the grinder, to allow her to walk through them to end Michael once and for all, that's like the ultimate sign of a town showing respect to a savior, to a hero.
Absolutely. I completely agree with everything you're saying. And the fact is, anyone that didn't understand it, I encourage you, watch it again. Watch it again. Watch it a third time. Watch it a fourth time till you fully understand it. I didn't go to the extent of Jeff. I didn't watch it all 4 days of the weekend. I watched it on the Friday, and I sat with it and replayed it in my head. And it's already available for pre-orders on iTunes. I've already pre-purchased that. That thing's going down. It's happening. It's coming my way very soon. That's
what a lot of people have said, is that the movie, even the few people I've seen the movie with outside of family, but like Kurt and Rosa, they liked it. But then another friend of mine, he didn't like it as much, but it was sitting with them. They were still thinking about it. I think the biggest gripe that I'm finding, a biggest problem, and you mentioned it when Corey goes to get that mask. I mean, that is a scene that has caused so much literal outrage, anger. I mean, mob anger in a hospital on Halloween Kills, that level of anger. They've started a petition today to try to get this movie changed and reshot. It's so stupid and asinine. But fans of purists of Michael Myers and Halloween series for Michael, who love and adore Michael. And I will just say a certain impact zone rascal that I know feels the biggest problem and hates this movie because of the disrespect that it feels it shows to Michael, because of his minimalism, his weakness, and especially the way he's beaten down by Corey. In my opinion, he's not 21 years old now taking 6 shots. He is 60 years old who just got out of a mob beating after a fire. So even though he's evil, he's on the downside, and he is weakened because maybe to an extent some evil's running its course. But as much as Corey, if he senses that some of that evil could be shared, and I think in that connection scene he could sense Corey's trouble as a trigger, something to share. At the end of the day, Michael still came back, and I think he came to that house. He came to that house for Corey. He wanted his mask back, and he was gonna fuck Corey up. I think Corey was dead either way once Michael got back to that house. That's the way. Yeah, and then when he's taking that mask back and he's owning it. So yes, you can feel disrespected, but at the end of the day, by the time it sets up that fight, Michael's still back. He's taking charge again of his evil for one last go. Somebody said I was losing my train of thought because I talked too much.
No, it's because you didn't breathe throughout that whole tangent, so you lost some oxygen.
I didn't breathe throughout the whole thing. People saying about if they were going to do that with Michael, then why did we just waste 90 minutes on Corey Cunningham? And I feel we didn't waste 90 minutes on Corey Cunningham. We got 90 minutes of great character development and a different take on the addiction of evil and how you can fall into that addiction when you're under duress from a social pressure that's against you constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At its core, this movie represents 3 factors to me. Bullying.
Yep.
A love story. And a fight forever feel that finally had to end. At the end of the day, we all wanted, as Halloween fans, we wanted one more time. We wanted that last match. And we got Laurie and Michael, not at the top of their game, like in Halloween 1 or Halloween 2. We got them.
Or 2018.
Or 2018. Yeah, you're right. We got them 4 years after 2018. So they're even older. He's also been in a sewer. Yeah. He's also been in a fucking sewer, and she's trying to erase everything that's happened and try to be this grandmother, baking pies, fucking burning it. Like, it was fucking hilarious. It was hilarious. Laurie, and then the part where she's like, "You like him, don't you? Oh, you want to grab him and show him your tits." I was just like, fuck me. Is that Laurie Strode right now that's saying that shit?
I got a huge reaction. That was a little bit of a Annie Brackett in her. She was channeling, or a Linda.
That's exactly what I thought. I'm like, that's Annie right there. And at the end of the day, at its core, this film right now will be hated because people nowadays just look for something to hate. I say this is a film that ages better with time. This is a film that people will go back and watch 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road and say, you know what? I hated on it. It's almost like me. I hated on Rob Zombie. I actually would have been that person back in the day starting a petition to get these 2 movies removed from the franchise. But look at me now. I've connected with a friend of me. He's changed my perception to the point where I am going to give them one last try. And if they still suck, you're going to get the message that says they still suck.
Fair enough. But you gave a chance, and that's all it is.
But when you see those three words come up, and if they don't, you may see you were right, or you may see they still suck. Either way, you're gonna get a smile on your face because you know I gave it a solid, fresh look.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's all you could
absolutely.
ever. I think that's all you ever wanted over this 1.5 year long tangent of every time you and I were on a podcast together. I would tell it what irked me the most, and I think you understand this. What irked me the most was that night in the theater, watching Rob Zombie's Halloween in the theater, getting up and leaving, and hearing these two kids saying how this character that he invented was genius. And that for me was like,
Yes, I remember you saying
that's what, yeah, that's what caused the frustration for me. I was like, invented? Are you
yeah.
like, have you never been to a Blockbuster? Do you not understand that these are based off a series from long ago? Like, do you not get this concept? He didn't create Michael fucking Myers. Deborah Hill and fucking John Carpenter did.
Yeah.
Like, show someone some fucking respect. And I think what excited me the most was that John Carpenter was on board with this series. John Carpenter had come back and was on board, whereas I don't believe he was on board so much with the Rob Zombie versions. So for
not
me,
at all.
yeah. So for me, I'm a Carpenter mark. So when the guy who created the character I love says, not gonna fly, I already went into the Rob Zombie films wanting to hate them because John Carpenter hated them.
But he did give his blessing to Rob, but at the same time, he's giving a blessing where he's getting a check anyway. You know, John Carpenter gets a check for everything. Every sequel that's made, he gets a check. So, I mean, but still, he told Rob Zombie, do it your own. Rob Zombie did not like remakes. He didn't want to do a remake, which is why he packed in the prequel stuff. Because, like you said, him as a fan, that's how he wanted to see the character go and wanted to explore that. He didn't want to really do the last bit with the characters because we had seen that. He didn't want to do that. And that's why he took H2 in such a wild, radical, different direction after they get out of the first 10 minutes in the hospital and we move the year or 2 years, depending on what cut you watch, ahead into new territory. That is more Rob Zombie being free to do what he wants to do with these characters a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, every director is going to have a different way to see things. Every viewer is going to watch something differently. But I think Halloween Ends, well, I loved it, and I'll put my stamp on it now. And now this is out there for the world to see. The internet is seeing this. I can't erase it. I can't go back. The world is going to see that I loved it. You and I were on the same page. A certain Impact star that you mentioned, he's probably going to watch you shake his head and be like, "You're both fucking wrong," and that's fine. The great thing about being a society is we're all entitled to our own opinions. And at the end of the day, our opinions don't have to be shared, but what can be shared is the love for the face that is behind me. Okay. The shape will always be and forever number one. There you go. It's a beautiful thing. There you go. It's a beautiful thing. So I would like to take the time to say, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on this relatively friendly debate today between you and me.
Absolutely.
The franchise that we love. I think we've opened up perceptions to each other that the other one may not have seen. Me with Paul Rudd as a Tommy Doyle, you with making me see Rob Zombie's films hopefully through a fresh set of eyes. Again, 3 words are going to come, one or the other. They still suck. You were right. You're not going to know yet, and I'm not going to just do it in the next couple of days. I'm going to wait till you forget about it. I'm going to do it like January 15th. And you're going to get this, and you're going to be like, what the fuck is this about? And then when you send me a question mark, I'll send you the link to our conversation again. I'll be like, remember this?
I won't forget.
Yeah.
I won't forget. And don't forget Halloween 5, which Halloween 5 is not one of my, it's lower on my list of faves, but don't forget of that assessment of the Tina character. If anything, if it helps you get through the movie watching it, as some justification.
It may help me, but at the end of the day, I may still send you a message that says, I fucking still hate Tina.
April Fools, right? By the time you watch it.
Yeah, maybe April Fools, maybe for sure. All right, guys, I want to thank my special guest, my good friend Jeff T. Smith, for coming on the show today. Jeff, do you want to shout out any socials or anything that you're working on, any upcoming projects? This is going to drop definitely before Halloween. So anything you got coming up before Halloween or after Halloween, go ahead and shout away.
Yeah, I'm so nicely at peace right now. I don't have anything really going on. I'm not involved with anything too much anymore. I just really focus on my own time, and my collections. So, I mean, socials, Instagram, Twitter at KDevJeff, and people seem to really like and enjoy seeing my new movies or new figures. And I'm no way calling myself an influencer, but I do get feedback when people say, I get customers at work saying, God, you're really like, you're always getting stuff and we love seeing it. And we might get this for our son or something like that. So, I mean, if my crazy constant getting stuff is people are enjoying that somehow and it's bringing some sort of enjoyment to following my socials, then hey, that's the least I could do. And I don't have to do anymore. I'm happy with it because
Absolutely,
it's just
absolutely.
me being me. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's me being
It
me.
is you being you. You are a person that I could say a year ago, fuck that guy. Now that we've squashed all our shit and we're at peace with one another, I will say I welcome your opinions and I do consider you a friend. Scratch the frenemy. You are definitely a friend. There you go. Look at that.
Thank you.
2022 started off pretty rough between us, but it's ending pretty fun. Look at that. Halloween Ends has brought together many ends. Look at that, right?
Absolutely. An ends to a means
There you go.
and a new beginning.
Absolutely.
Because
Oh, no.
we like our friendship, it doesn't die, it only changes shape.
I love it. I love it. Guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this episode if you liked it. If you want us to do something else down the line, you know what? If Jeff's up for it, I'd be down to do something else down the line. We go down the rabbit hole of some more fuckery, debate something, enjoy it. But as always, this is Straight Talk Wrestling, the Halloween review edition. For my co-host today, Jeff T. Smith, and your host, your boy, George Mackay. Peace, love, and wrestling. We'll see you next time.